Hello everybody, Magoti here and welcome back to On World Building. Today I want to talk about a very important thing called centers of power and power projection. Nations naturally have centers of power. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. It can be multiple things. Typically it is the capital, however the cultural heartland or the most densely populated region also have been historical centers of power. Once you have a nation with a firm center of power, like for example, right here, let's use this example, the northern part, this region. It's fairly geographically isolated with mountains, and it's on the edge, so it is fairly protected from almost every side. Invasion into this land would definitely be fairly troublesome for majority of people. people. And depends on the level of technology, kingdoms will be of varying size. However, typically in fantasy, kingdoms are way too large. Realistically, if we look at the topography and stuff, we can easily tell that if this kingdom succeeds, which it probably will due to its defensive borders and it realistically only having to protect one of its sides, it could very easily expand and take this region for itself, getting a very firm power base going. Comparatively speaking, the other side might actually do the same. In actuality, it probably will, since in history it's very common for when there is one empire on the rise, next to it another empire will rise to challenge it. Challenge it. Challenge it. This has happened with Rome, Germany, Britain. You can't exist in a vacuum. Nations don't exist in a vacuum. When one side becomes too strong, the other side effectively has to either also become strong or be eaten. That's why you will commonly see, as an answer to a strong centralized force, a loose confederation or a coalition forming to effectively oppose them. However, nations are rarely fully centralized. Nice. Let's say that our island will be split between these two nations. Where does their power projection lie? Where realistically can different nations project their power into? Well, there is this central valley, which I'm gonna leave grey for now, and let's look forward. While the northern parts might be capable to be absorbed into the Red Empire, I actually greatly doubt that. There is a mountain separating them, and they could very easily be swayed towards blue side to help. Remember, the blue side wants different nobles and the power projection of the red side to be weaker, while the red side wants the blue side to be weaker. We will most likely see a plentitude of buffer states form around both of them. Both of them. It is even realistic that a large sections of the empires will become vassal states. Become vassal states. As large empires typically do not like bordering each other. The other side will naturally do the same. They will have their own set of buffers. Additionally, power projection is a two-way streak. As soon as one player thinks that the opponent is becoming too strong, they will try to match them in strength. You get a sort of an arms race of power projection. This actually has happened historically, mainly between France and Britain. You will also see here how For majority of the land, the Blue Empire and the Red Empire actually do not border each other. Their fight would mainly go through client states, trying to up each other on their spheres of influence. And this is very rarely portrayed in fantasy. Remember, your center of power will heavily limit your expansion opportunities. You can't expand over mountains. You need geographic borders such as mountains. Then it's very hard to expand across oceans because sea invasions are costly and rare, where forests make natural barriers. However, empires can still exert power over mountains, over rivers. However, controlling those regions 100% will be a bit difficult. That's why a lot of kingdoms in history have relied on client states. So next time when you're making a fantasy world, try implementing client states. Think realistically, where do the empires want to project power? And you might say you might have something completely irrational come into play. It isn't fully uncommon for an empire that is located in one region. Let's just say we have an empire that is located right here on this region, to want to exert their power in completely different areas, to meddle in things such as here, to meddle in things going on here, or maybe even all the way up here. For example, France held very high influence over different parts of Italy. Britain had at some point vested interest in basically entirety of the world. And I'm not saying necessarily that this only applies to colonialism or that kind of era. Nations have interacted with each other a lot of the time. France and Ottomans, for example, who were allied, Habsburgs had land all over the place, majority of which was run under client states. Remember that client states, while not directly under the nation, are still a projection of its power and have been used historically very heavily. Well, that's it. Hope you good time on world building.